Hey team, Jen here. Welcome to week 6. This week's announcement will be blessedly short. Particularly, that's a nice relief following the very long videos that have made up the first 5 weeks. But here, as we come over the hump of the midterm, it's nice to just take a little bit of a breather. I wanted to cover a couple of things in this video. First of all, I wanted to thank you for your efforts. Many of you have really stepped it up in your courses, and I've been noticing that and noting it in my matrix. So I wanted to thank you for your good work and for your dedication to conforming to the expectations of SNHU, which we're trying harder to articulate and to enforce this term. So I really appreciate your efforts there. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to touch on the importance of getting course extensions and incomplete grades paperwork started here in week 6. I also wanted to talk about why it's important to include me in your outreach to students. And finally, I wanted to talk about some tips for encouraging better student performance in the discussion forums this week. So first things first, several instructors have already been coming to me about students who have fallen off the map for a variety of reasons and who already might be in need of getting an extension for the course. Now, extensions are there to help good students who follow up with you, who are trying, and due to some circumstance, they're falling behind or they're not able to meet particular deadlines. And here in week 6, it's looking like this student might be able to benefit from getting an extension for the course. I've had a couple emails so far about, how do I do this? What should I do for this student? He's a full week behind in the class due to a death in the family, but he's really, he's active, he's following up with me. I don't want this student to fail. He's a good student. Now is a very good time to reach out to students who are falling behind but are still good, strong students who are following up with you, trying really hard to stay on task. It might be a good idea to start the process of implementing an extension for students like this, either in week 6 or week 7 or week 8. Those are all good times to start the process. Here are some tips for how you can do this. First of all, reach out to the student, let him know that getting an extension for the course is a possibility. Talk to him about what it entails and ask him if he's interested in it. If he says that he is, then the next thing that I always do is I say, well, what I'm going to need from you first and foremost is I need to know that you're committed to definitely finishing this course. I want to know a very distinct timeline that you will promise me that you'll stick to that's going to get us to the end of the course. So for example, I let students know right off the bat that once you get an extension, it's not acceptable to plan on turning in all your work on the very last day of the extension. I need to see exact dates. I need to see the dates in which he plans on finishing such and such milestone or such and such essay, such and such discussion post, such and such workshop. I need to see those exact dates. Here in week 8, I'm going to do week 7 work, etc. So I need to know that deadline. If he falls behind on that, then we have to reconsider his extension. So you let him set his own guidelines that you can approve, but I always ask students to do that busy work themselves, and I ask them for a plan of action. So how do you plan on getting this work done, considering your circumstances right now? And I ask them to be very realistic. By what date do you feel like you could get this work done? And I lock that in for them. So then I go ahead and proceed with the paperwork, and I make a note on the paperwork about the action plan and the schedule that the student has set. This gives students a little bit of elbow room. It allows struggling students who are good students to take a little bit of a breath. And it gives you the opportunity to hang on to students that you feel are good students who have just met with some unfortunate situations. So that's my advice here in week 6. It's a good time to start to be active. Keep your eye open for students who might need extensions. With that being said, I very rarely ever grant extensions to students who ask for them, for example, after the final paper is due or right before the final paper is due. For me, that's not acceptable. In week 6, I often remind students of this in my weekly video or my announcement in your announcement section. Your policies, your expectations about extensions could be helpful if you want to do that too. The next thing I wanted to touch on is the importance of making sure that you loop me in to your outreach to students. I see, thankfully, a lot of students who are in the red and yellow in your courses. I'm thankful for that because it shows that not all students are getting perfect scores, which is good. I'm also seeing a lot of variety in your grading, which is good. When you have a student who is in the yellow or in the red, I need you to outreach that student by asking them, what went wrong, giving them some tips for how to succeed in the next deliverable, touching base with them. And I need you to copy me on that email so that I can know in your matrix that you are doing outreach. There's no other way for me to access your outreach to students unless you email me as well. So this week, if you want to go back to emails that you emailed to students for outreach and also copy me on that email, that would be helpful. Because otherwise I have no record that you are actually outreaching these students. And so in my matrix, I'll have to put down that you're not doing any outreach because I haven't heard from you. Some of you I have contacted and asked if you've done some outreach. But if you're doing outreach behind the scenes, let me see it. That way I can evaluate you on that and make a note that you are in fact doing it. Not all instructors do, believe it or not. So I need to know that you are. My final point for this week is a tip about the importance of the week 6 discussion forums. I feel like after the midpoint in the semester, it's a really good time to start asking students to show synthesis with the texts that they've read so far up until this point in the discussion forums and in their papers. So from week 6 on in the forums, I really try to encourage students to synthesize the primary texts for the primary text for week 6 with primary texts that they've read in previous weeks. It's nice to ask students to do the busy work of synthesis because not only is it a key move in the academic essay genre, but it also will help them to bridge the works that you've done and to reflect and get that crucial reflection in. So here in week 6, I make it a point to ask students to start doing synthesis. I want to see them being intertextual with their discussions. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight on how to operate stronger in week 6. As always, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I look forward to reading your discussions and contributing to them in the forums this week. Bye for now.